holiday time for most American families. For Jewish Americans, Hanukkah starts at sundown. As anyone who visits a department store knows, Santa Claus is already as much a fixture on the shelves as the shelves and the lights. The congressional Christmas tree will be lit in a few days. This should be a happy time for families, but the festive mood is dampened by the high unemployment and the slow economic growth rate in this country. Too many businesses are struggling. Too many investors are holding back their capital. Too many workers are idled. And here in Washington, we hear too much talk and take too little action to effectively address these problems. For almost 4 years, our friends on the other side have failed to take action on the tax increase that will soon hit virtually every income tax-paying American. There is a bipartisan resolution staring us all in the face. It is the only bipartisan compromise. I'm talking about the seamless extension of current bipartisan tax policy that was enacted in 2001 and 2003. How is it the only bipartisan compromise on the table? Look no further than the statements of members themselves. I'm aware of no Republican in the House or Senate favoring less than full prevention of the widespread tax hikes set to kick in 31 short days. Democrats are split. That's why we've seen no action for almost 4 years. It seems they may be split 3 ways. I've heard rumors that many Democrats in both bodies would privately prefer current law. That is, they would prefer to leave the law as it is and let the tax hikes kick in. But that is a privately held sentiment. The politics of advocating a tax increase on virtually every American income taxpayer aren't, shall we say, compelling. And that's the first group. The second group is aligned with President Obama's budget. That position would guarantee a marginal tax hike on all small business owners with incomes above $200,000 if single or $250,000 if married. That's the second group. A significant number of Democratic House and Senate members have signaled that a short-term, seamless extension of all current tax law relief is their preferred course. Now, that's the third group. There might be a fourth group who think that we ought to just raise that $200,000 to $500,000 and that $250,000 to $1 million. But that still hits small business right in the face at a time when we need to create jobs. And we Republicans understand that. I can't understand why my Democrat friends don't seem to understand it. Now, there are some who do. I think the current presiding officer understands that. So I guess I could say there are 4 groups in that sense. Republicans generally support a permanent tax freeze. Now, that position is embodied in Leader McConnell's bill. I'm pleased to be a co-sponsor of that bill. But we Republicans know that, as good as that policy is, we will not likely find at least 18 Democrats to join us. We likely won't get 60 votes for now, or for it now. And I might add that we would make it permanent if we could, but it's very difficult to get 60 votes on that. Now, the wisdom of the bipartisan compromise is that it keeps intact the political glue that made the bipartisan tax relief possible in the first place. Republicans supported the original plan because of the mix of 2 tax relief policies. The first policy was tax relief for America's families. The second policy was tax relief designed to spur economic growth. The fact that we are divided now is due to the Democratic leadership's insistence that the growth incentives part of the compromise be broken off. They want to break it off using language like, quote, decoupling, unquote, and discard the pro-growth policy. That is the essence of the difference. Democrats are split, but the Democratic leadership is united on the point of breaking off the pro-growth piece of the policy. In an effort to avoid the obvious compromise, 2 members of the Senate Democratic leadership have put forward a new proposal. The proposal would apply the pending rate hikes to single taxpayers at $500,000 of income and married couples at $1 million of income that I've explained earlier. This latest partisan proposal is said to be necessary for fiscal reasons. Finance Committee Republican staff, using data from the Nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation, conducted a preliminary analysis of this particular proposal. They concluded that less than half the revenue sought by the Democratic leadership would be raised by this proposal. That tells me the reason behind this new proposal is ideological. Now, some may ask, why don't Republicans give in and agree to hike taxes on those earning over $500,000 and $1 million? Certainly, it puts a fine point on the usual political game of class warfare. To those of us on this side of the aisle, the sting of the proposal's political shot is far outweighed by its economic harm. Why is it so important? Let me turn to two broad principles where Democrats and Republicans generally agree. The first principle is that a healthy, growing economy is a very good antidote to our fiscal ailments. The second principle is that small business will be the source of the new jobs. Don't think you'll find much daylight between Republicans and Democrats on those principles. Now let's consider the merits of this so-called, quote, millionaire, unquote, tax in light of these bipartisan principles. Fiscal history shows, without question, that revenues will grow and temporary social safety net entitlement spending will drop if the economy grows. I have a chart that shows this. Now just see this chart 1. If you follow this chart, you will see revenue is very sensitive to the changes in growth. Revenues are the red, happens to be the red, GDP happens to be the green. Revenue goes up. Growth goes down, as you can see. It is well established that capital is the lifeblood of business. According to Answers.com, and I quote, capital is the life by which the body of business operates. A business without finance is like a body in coma. No matter how great the environment is, the entity is considered dead. It is the blood that keeps men alive. Drain the blood and watch life end for even the strongest and most privileged human that exists, unquote. Now, no one disputes the notion that taxpayers with incomes above $500,000 for singles and $1 million for married couples are a small fraction of the tax-paying population. But they account for an awful lot of capital gain income. A proposal to raise the marginal rate on capital gain income by 33% on this group may seem like it would have minimal impact on the pool of capital income. Internal Revenue Service data indicate the contrary is true. The latest data from the IRS Statistics of Income Division are revealing. Now, I'm quoting the IRS now. According to the Statistics of Income Division, taxpayers at $1 million and over accounted for 56.5% of the net long-term capital gain income for 2008. Now, this figure reached close to 70% the year before. Keep in mind that that statistic understates the impact. The reason is that the capital gain income for single taxpayers with income between $500,000 and $1 million isn't counted. The proposed so-called millionaire's tax would pile up rates on this large pool of capital income. Now, see this second chart here. The chart shows the current tax rate for this group of taxpayers rising to 24% in a little over 2 years. That means an almost 60% higher tax hike on earnings from capital, from its current law. If capital is the lifeblood of business, does it make sense to make the investment of it dramatically less attractive? Considering the current slow growth rate, jobless recovery Should we put in place policy that drives down the after-tax rate of return on capital? Now, I've talked only about the hike on capital income. Since flow-through small business income would be adversely affected by the tax hikes on ordinary income. Naturally, you can see I'm concerned about it. Look at what that means. It's true that these small business owners would be earning over $500,000 if single and over $1 million if married. But they represent a significant portion of the ownership of small businesses that will create new jobs. According to the Nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation, the President's tax hikes would hit half of flow-through small business income. Half of flow-through small business income. Think about that. Now, that's the Joint Committee on Taxation. I don't have the same calculation for this revised proposal. But do we have the margin for error, Mr. President? In this rough patch of our economic history, shouldn't the policy bias be towards business expansion? Why should we send the opposite signal? In this economic climate, what justifies a higher marginal rate of 17% on the most successful of our small businesses? Why hit the small businesses most likely to expand and hire people and give them jobs? And Mr. President, the way is clear. To my friends in the Democratic leadership, and they're my friends, I dare say that virtually everybody in this body is a friend of mine. They're good people here. But why aren't we working in a bipartisan way to solve these problems? The way is clear. To my friends in the Democratic leadership, I say, throw down the partisan weapons. Don't sharpen them with more partisan, edgy proposals like the so-called, quote, millionaire's tax, unquote. On our side, we'd like to keep the current low tax rates in effect. We would want them to be permanent. We, however, recognize that the legislative calendar of this session is about to end. We are ready to take a short-term timeout with a seamless short-term extension of our current tax relief. And I ask our friends on the other side to do the same. Now, it's no secret that all 42 Republicans have said we should go to work on these problems right now and quit playing games around here. And we're unwilling to let anything else go forward until we solve these problems. And these problems are the problems of extending the current tax relief for everybody. We would like it to be permanent. Most of the Democrats would not like it to be permanent. There has to be a way of bringing us together. We are not going to agree, it seems to me, we're not going to agree to go to what our friends on the other side want to do and increase taxes at this time in the economic history of this country. Now, all 42 Republicans have signed a letter making it very clear that you will not get cloture on anything until we resolve these problems. And then let's go to work after that. If the leadership does want to keep playing around in December, in this holiday season, let's at least go to work on the other problems. And I can think of a lot of other problems. For instance, the so-called SGR doc fix. Do you realize the Democrats have taken $500 billion out of Medicare? You know, if they took $282 billion of that, that solves the doc fix. We don't have to worry about it every year like we do right now. And that money's there. What about the death tax? If we don't solve the death tax, it just dramatically goes up. Who does it hurt? Small business people, farmers, and others who don't have all the lawyers in the world to help them to evade those taxes. What about the AMT, the alternative minimum tax? That was a tax that was supposed to affect the 155 multimillionaires who didn't pay taxes that year. Today, it will affect 23 million to 26 million people, many million in the middle class. Democrats always talk like they want to get rid of it, but I think they really love it because it means more taxes for them to spend, more revenues for them to spend. Why don't we get rid of it? Even if we don't have an offset, I'd prefer to get rid of it because it goes up every year. We have to patch it every year. It costs us billions of dollars, where if we do it once, it's a one-hit thing that at least we know where we are and we can work the deficit down from there. Or what about the research and development tax credit? Everybody here, virtually everybody in this body, knows how important that is to our high-tech world, our high-tech industry, which in some ways is not competitive because we always foul it up almost every year. It's now been absent for a year now because even though the Democrats have had abject control of this body and could have done anything they wanted to do to preserve it and protect it, they haven't done a doggone thing. Now, as somebody who works on intellectual property issues day in, day out, and has done so for 34 years in the Senate, and has done so in a bipartisan way, and I don't think anybody on the other side can say I haven't worked with them in these areas. Senator Leahy and I work together very closely on these issues. Why aren't we making it possible for our high-tech world to create jobs by being more competitive, by giving them what we all basically agree they should have, and doing it permanently, the research and development tax credit? These are just a few of the things that I think we ought to be able to get together on in a bipartisan way and really accomplish something here at the end of this year. Now, if I was the president, now I'm not, but if I was, and it's nice to speculate every once in a while, especially here on the floor of the Senate when we see all these problems, if I was the president, I would be banging on the Democrats and Republicans to resolve these problems that I've been talking about here today. Think about it. The president would have all of December. He would have all of January, virtually. Since we don't really get geared up and going very much in February, he'd have most of February. And he might even have most of March almost all to himself and to his organization right down there in the White House. I can't understand for the life of me why the president isn't weighing in to get this problem solved now and these problems solved now that I've been talking about. It's disadvantage. But instead, we're going to play these phony political games right up till Christmas Day. Now, we've done that before, and I can live with that. Look, I can work on Christmas Day as far as I'm concerned. But it's ridiculous what's going on around here. It's ridiculous, and here we have 3 or 4 days now that hardly anything's going to be done where we could resolve these problems. Now, we've got this group together. It's a good group. We have good representatives from the House, from the Senate, and, of course, the Treasury Secretary, the Director of OMB. I have high hopes that they'll wise up and come to a conclusion that this is what we have to do and do it as quickly as we can in the best interest of our country so there is some, and let's use this word, not just advisedly, but every day, some certainty for our business community to create jobs with, and our bankers to start loaning again, and for others to get involved in the economy. This is to the advantage of the president. I don't understand why he isn't beating on the guys on this other side and over there in the House to wake up and do what's right, and let's get this over with and get this country back on track again. Republicans are dedicated to try and resolve this problem, but we're not going to get pushed around on this. And frankly, we want to solve it with our friends on the other side. I just hope we can. Mr. President, I don't see any other senators here, so I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.